uncensored. Welcome to COASTER-net Uncut. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of COASTER-net Uncut. I'm, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois, joined by Mr. Conspiracy himself, Danny Miller. Danny, we just came off of a huge announcement day for Cedar Fair, where most of the parks actually revealed what they're doing for 2018. But as you know, we've been following these teaser campaigns very closely, and I thought, maybe we should come together today and kind of explain some of these teasers now knowing what the final product is. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is good to do. And as we talked about, just the other night in the Knott's Berry Farm video, where we talked about a little bit about Hang Time, which is coming to Knott's Berry Farm in 2018. We thought it was appropriate because we've had a lot of comments on some of these announcement videos about how we were wrong about the Cedar Fair announcements and how there was no shared theme or there was no, shared tie-in. And we made the point, you specifically made the point that Cedar Fair was not going to come out and actually say, this is the tie-in, this is how we were hinting at all the other parks. They weren't going to do that because at Knott's Berry Farm, the people there at the announcement don't really care about Cedar Point. And what their announcement was at that given time. And the people and the folks at Knott's Berry Farm don't really care about, what Cedar Point announced that day. They are there to find out what Knott's was announcing. And at the end of the day, a lot of the people who might be watching that Knott's Berry Farm announcement aren't going to cover the Cedar Point announcement. Now, the enthusiasts are going to be excited for what Cedar Fair announced. So we thought that it would be, if you were expecting all the parks to come out and say, oh yeah, we referenced King's Dominion here and California's Great America here. No. That's not what we were expecting. We were saying more along the lines of that there were going to be hints at the other parks, and there were going to be Easter eggs, stuff that the general public maybe isn't going to pick up on, but stuff that we, the enthusiasts, were going to pick up on, little Easter eggs there just to make it a little bit more fun for us. So we thought it would be appropriate to do an actual uncut show, which we haven't done in a while. We've been doing a lot of these shorter updates with the rumors and everything, but we thought it'd be good to do a discussion on an actual uncut show here today to go through the 4 teaser campaigns, or I guess I should say 3. We're not really going to talk about Knott's Berry Farm that much because they did almost no teasing, and the one teaser they really put out there was really just the part of the Hang Time logo. Knott's Berry Farm is kind of the exception here. They didn't really drop any Easter eggs at the other 3 parks. So we're going to go through the other 3, King's Dominion, Cedar Point, and California's Great America, just briefly run through their teaser campaigns and actually show you how many Easter eggs were actually in each of these teaser campaigns. And if you don't believe us, fine. But I think there's pretty strong evidence that there were at least some Easter eggs there hinting at the other parks. So we're going to go through them for you.
Yeah, so let's start with King's Dominion. And their first teaser was the 816 with the Eiffel Tower in the background. And Danny, honestly, you could stop the show right here because this is the only teaser that I need to know that this was there was some collaboration here, because Cedar Fair has never done a shared announcement ever. We've never had all the parks coming out on one day and telling us what they're giving us in 2018. It's never happened. It's never even come close to happening like this. So the 816, this was clear to me that, hey, everyone is announcing on National Roller Coaster Day. We said this when it happened, that this is probably the date of the announcement, and here we have everyone announcing on 8/16. So there's no other real interpretation here. I know we went down some rabbit holes with this one that ended up not being true. With Worlds of Fun, and Worlds of Fun was really our only true mistake in this entire campaign. That we thought Worlds of Fun was going to be that fourth place, and it ended up not being anything at all. So
Yeah, and we came out pretty early on saying that we were wrong about that, and that, you know, we said at the beginning that if we were wrong about any of these, that we would own it and we would amend our predictions, which we did, because we'll talk about California's Great America in a few minutes here, but we got a teaser from California's Great America at one point that referenced Knott's Berry Farm.
Yeah.
So at that point is when we officially kind of amended our prediction. We were hanging on to that World's a Fun thing, hoping we'd be right, but we eventually did jump on the Knott's bandwagon. But like you said, 8/16, all these announcements happened on 8/16, you know, August 16th, which National Roller Coaster Day. So that right there is a little bit of a hint that not only King's Dominion, but the others were doing all these announcements on the same day too. So that's the simplest one right there.
The next one is the 20 better than 4, and there's a few things here. First, we have the numbers 20 better than 4 that ended up being the 20 airtime moments better than the 4 airtime moments on Old Hurler. That's the most obvious reference. We also have the introduction of the double T, the upside down T with the other T. That eventually turned into the Twisted Timbers. You know, we kind of speculated that maybe the T's had something to do with something in the name. We went down the rabbit hole of Rodden because we saw that in a lot of the different teasers in the Matrix-style background. Also, the Matrix-style background had nothing to do with the overall theme. Some people were saying sci-fi. I kind of never bought into that.
Yeah, they were just really hiding pieces of text, and we'll see in one of the upcoming teasers that there actually was a little Cedar Point hint here. We talked about how 20 better than 4. If you Googled that, you got visual acuity, which was VA, which is the state abbreviation for Virginia. So they kind of reference themselves here. But this one seemed to purely be a King's Dominion teaser.
Well, but now there's another part of this one that we don't really know for sure yet. That we have the 20 better than 4. That, you know, 4 was the Matt We Met comment of the 4 new coasters for 2018. We speculated that the 20 would be 20 overall new additions for Cedar Fair. Since we don't have anything official for Kings Island yet or Michigan's Adventure, I don't know. We're kind of far away from the 20 right now.
We're sitting at 14 rides. If you look at the actual rides, the flat rides, and then the 4 coasters, we're sitting at 14. Now, if you go into attractions and you count the Dorney Park restaurant as an attraction, then you could add another there. So we might have a little bit of latitude to try and make that one fit our story, but you know, depending on how we want to count things. But that one kind of remains to be seen whether or not there's a method to link that one into our theory.
Yeah, so the next one then was 3 better than none. And also we see the apples here again. So they are tying, because before the Hurler ride was never really part of Candy Apple Grove. Now they're definitely tying that whole area together. So we get these apples. The 3 better than none. You know, 3. What was this one? The 3 inversions.
It's the 3 inversions is what they're referencing here, and just to go back to the last one for a second. Actually, something that I realized is that they had Snoopy in there, and remember that the Snoopy, you know, we have images in each of these. We have the Eiffel Tower, but Snoopy was the big thing last year, and remember the King's Dominion thing was a 2-year thing because they had Snoopy looking at Hurler as part of their teaser last year, and people thought they would announce something with Hurler last year, when in fact he was looking at the Big Planet Snoopy billboard on the side of the Hurler station. But Carowinds is getting a Planet Snoopy or a Snoopy area expansion this year too. So you could kind of work in the fact that they're maybe hinting at Carowinds too, and the fact that Snoopy also played into their teaser last year. But this one again looks the 3 better than none with the apple, with the apples, definitely looks like this was another pure King's Dominion one. Again, the double T showed up again. We originally were speculating, oh, that's just referencing the Iron Horse. And later, as we kept seeing it as a recurring theme in every single teaser, we then eventually said, hey, that's got to have something to do with the name, whether there's, you know, double T's in the name somewhere. We thought maybe it might be something along the lines of like rattlesnake, where the 2 T's actually occur together. But then we suggested that it would be a 2-word name where both words began with the letter T, which is ultimately what we got.
The three better than none also could reference the three RMCs, which we didn't know that we were getting three RMCs. You know, we knew we were getting two. There was nothing that really guaranteed a third at California's Great America. You know,
when we saw the SR1 is when we speculated that might mean single rail one, which I believe, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But we had different ideas of what SR1 actually stood for, and in fact, it seems like it did stand for single rail one. And that's kind of when we first came up with the fact that there might be a single rail coming to one of the other two parks.
Yeah, exactly. So the next one is 28 makes it better. Ultimately, what did this turn out to be, Danny?
Well, the interesting thing here, and I'm going to go to RCDB here to help me out with this one, because when we first talked about this one, I immediately noticed the fact that there were feet and legs as the image in this one, and I thought that was a hint at 28 feet makes it better. And the original height of Hurler King's Dominion is 83 feet. So if you do 83 times or plus 83 plus 28, you get 111. So if I search Twisted Timbers now, they don't actually have a height on it yet. We do know that the barrel roll drop is 109 feet. So there might be a height of 111 somewhere there. That might be what we're looking at here. I don't know the exact number. We don't see the exact number of the height, but that could be a reference to the actual height of the ride, to be 111 feet. So that's kind of something we're going with here. We believe that's what that actually references to. And again, we see the double T's in this one again. So again, a recurring theme. And it was also the word better was a recurring thing here too, because we saw better appear in several teasers in a row.
Yeah. The next one is where we get into the less numbers, more mystery. The next one is the force rattled the windows. Now, this, I guess, plays into the overall story that they're telling for Twisted Timbers, that they've created this whole backstory just like they did for Mystic Timbers. But once again, the Force, I think, clearly references Cedar Point in this. That is Millennium Force is their big ride. The use of the word Force here, because even this part of it plays into the storyline a little bit, but doesn't play heavily into it. So I think this was specifically designed to throw out a shout out to Cedar Point.
Yeah, and we talked about with the recent teasers how the last couple got ambiguous, and the first two or three, with the numbers were specifically referencing mainly Twisted Timbers, with maybe little hints at the others, but we thought that they were kind of getting away from specifically talking about the ride and were getting very ambiguous to try and make people think a little bit more. And I think that this was,
Oh my God, Danny Miller.
What?
Dude, stop. Let's go to the next one. It left everything tattered and torn in its wake. That's another Knott's Berry Farm reference. That's there.
A direct reference to Knott's Berry Farm because a wake, for those of you who are not nautical experts, wake is what makes waves. A wake is made up of several waves. So when a boat goes by and it makes a wake, it's the waves coming off of the boat that drives by. And this one, again, we see the double T's here. So wake is a reference to riptide, okay? And then we also see it, again, tying back to King's Dominion here, because a lot of people thought this was a Jeep or something else. I said it looked like an old school, a 50s or 60s style automobile. If you go way back to when we talked about this one. And this is the lead car that we see on Twisted Timbers. It is the exact lead car that we see on Twisted Timbers. So this is definitely a two-level teaser here. We see a multi-level, I guess. We see the double T's coming in again. We see wake, which is a riptide reference, and we also see Yes, and then we see the King's Dominion
Yeah.
lead card literally being shown to us.
That's crazy. So the next one gets even more specific. It can be a bit naughty. This one, it's almost as if no one picked up on the wake, and they felt the need to go back and make it even more obvious.
and this one is the one to me that absolutely sold me on the fact that there are Easter eggs at all the other parks, because this one in particular references Cedar Point as well. And I pointed it out when we talked about this one. Again, we see the double T's for Twisted Timbers. We see Naughty. Okay, so we got the Knott's Berry Farm reference there again. We see what looks like a knot in a piece of wood, which would, again, be tying it back to Hurler and possibly Mean Streak at the same time. But then I pointed out, if you look just above the word bit, right between the I and the T, in the Matrix style lettering, you can actually see the phrase "it's coming." And Cedar Point, as we're going to get to in a minute, was always saying "they're coming." That was the hashtag they were using. "They're coming," referring to possibly the 3 RMCs, but also the 3 characters that are tied into Steel Vengeance. "It's coming" references the Twisted Timbers. So "it's coming" is a phrase referencing back to King's Dominion, but also tying in to the basically the hashtag that was the anchor of the entire Cedar Point campaign.
Yeah, I agree completely. There is a lot here. The last 2 teasers, I don't feel like there's much there for anything. So it says, "Do you see a pattern?" It's got the apples again for the Candy Apple Grove. I don't see anything in particular.
No, this one I think was kind of like you see the apples images, but I really think that this one was one that wrapped it up all and put a little bow on top, because we see pattern with the double T's, which makes you think there's something that they want you to pay attention to that. As I said on the show a few weeks ago, you're a teacher, and something that the teacher says over and over again, or something they write over and over again, is something that's important. And the fact that they put it in every single teaser is something that we need to pay attention to. And we also saw all the different words from the previous teasers with the double T's in it were in this teaser in the Matrix. We see naughty, we see rattle, we see better. We see the 816. We saw better than none. We saw, we saw everything here. So there was a lot going on with this one here.
So, and then the last one is just a cap. I don't think there was any, we'd even talk about the last one on air. It says, "We've been listening to all your chatter about why Hurler went away. You'll soon see the crux of the matter on National Roller Coaster Day." This one, it just clearly says that, because keep in mind, at this point, some people were still speculating that it had nothing to do with Hurler and that it had to do something with Haunt. So this one clearly shows that we never went down that rabbit hole at all. But this one clearly shows that they were doing something with Hurler that I think 90% of the people realized and maybe 10% didn't. So moving on to Cedar Point, and I think we have to start with the closing or the first teaser that we got, last year with Their Coming, and really it started, like you said, with King's Dominion, with there's really more coming with the RMC. Going back to the closing of Mean Streak last year. We had the funeral director go up there and give a few words at the funeral. Richard Michael Crosby, RMC, right there. So that they were laying the groundwork last year already, and then we get They're Coming, and everyone's like, why there? And I don't think we're going to talk about things in specific here with Cedar Point, because I think there's only 2 really big things to talk about. The one is They're Coming, and then the wanted posters with the 3 different characters. So I think it's clear that They're Coming refers to the 3 RMCs. That at this point, looking at Steel Vengeance, yes, we have the 3 characters, but we really don't know what those 3 characters are actually for.
Right.
That we still assume they're going to be part of the Battle for Cedar Point game, but that was never confirmed anywhere that they're going to be part of that. that they're part of the logo. They're selling T-shirts with these 3 characters that have 3 very distinct personalities, maybe even distinct enough that you could maybe tie them to the different coasters, with with Digger maybe representing the single rail, with Chase representing Twisted Timbers, and then with Blackjack representing Steel Vengeance. Maybe that's what they're doing. But then also on top of that, we speculated that the number 3 keeps coming up all the time. We see 3 in the King's Dominion teasers. We see 3 in the Cedar Point teasers, referencing directly the 3 RMCs. There's a lot. There were a lot of like little hints in there throughout the campaign, talking about how how Mean Streak's going to stake its claim, and how Cedar Fair has not worked with RMC ever before, and that a lot of people have been calling for this move for years. I can't tell you how many times that Mean Streak and other rides were being
ever since New Texas Giant opened, people said that Mean Streak was the one to do, because Mean Streak was essentially a larger mirror image of Texas Giant, and it was the opportunity to do Texas Giant Plus.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cedar Point didn't put out a whole lot of teasers. A lot of it was just showing off the ride, different views of it that we've already seen or that we haven't seen. So I think those teasers kind of all play into maybe not referencing the other parks directly, but definitely using terminology very similarly to the other parks.
Yeah.
So then moving on, is there anything else you want to say about Cedar Point?
No, I think it comes down to the fact that the 3 characters could represent the 3 RMCs, and those were the 2 things that they were talking about. They're coming. Again, people were like, oh, well, it doesn't refer to the RMCs, it refers to the characters. Well, you've got to remember, like we said with King's Dominion, it's multi-layered. Yes, every King's Dominion teaser had something to do with the King's Dominion attraction, but they also drop these little Easter eggs that the general public who goes to just King's Dominion is not going to pick up on. Okay, we understand that. There's little Easter eggs in there for us, the coaster folks, to reference. And I mean, we had some back and forth with King's Dominion. We know that King's Dominion was watching the updates that we did on all their teasers, and they seemed to have just as much fun hearing us talk about that as we did talking about it. So I mean, we know what's going on here. It's I don't think you're going to convince either of us that there weren't at least little Easter eggs hidden in there for us.
And then we move on to California's Great America, where it started with the stake in the ground. Also, coincidentally, the way the Mean Streak rumors started last year as well. If you remember, somebody put a stake in the ground in Mean Streak when it was still open that said RMC on it. Now, all of a sudden, California's Great America has the same marker in their ground. That's how they start their campaign. And on it, it said SR1. It came to later say Project SR1, but it started with SR1, and that started us down this path of what does SR1 mean? Ultimately, once again, it can mean multiple things. SR1 can mean, single rail one, the first single rail. Maybe not the first single rail, but it's definitely a single rail, and it's the first time we've seen something like that, at least on the West Coast. I also speculated that SR1 could mean State Route 1. And when we start looking into it, we notice that a lot of the parks have an SR1 right near it. Obviously, California's Great America does. King's Dominion does. Cedar Point had an old road by Cleveland that was SR1. And then ultimately, we once again went down the rabbit hole with Worlds of Fun here. But ultimately, Knott's also has an SR1 right near it as well, that it travels all the way up and down the west coast of California. Then we get, I think, the most convincing, and
to add on to that SR1 thing really quick before we get to basically the slam dunk here, I think California's Great America is watching what we are doing too, even though they weren't as vocal about King's Dominion and they didn't send us anything like King's Dominion did with the box. I think the fact that they made those T-shirts with State Route 1 highlighted in red, I think was, even if that's not what they were going for, I think that was a little hint maybe at what some of the people were saying, because that's something we started, the whole State Route 1 thing.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone else who actually started that.
No.
So whether or not that's what they meant, I think that might have been a little wink, wink, nod, nod at what we were doing here, because we followed all these teaser campaigns. But Andy, there's a slam dunk here that California's Great America, they lobbed it up for us, and all we had to do was slam it home. And this is the moment we've been waiting for. The apology line starts here, Andy.
Yes, the apology line starts here because we got this wonderful trailhead sign that said said a whole bunch of stuff. The most notable part of it is the signs. So you have this trailhead at the top, the summit, the Frontier Summit, as they call it. We said was a direct reference to Cedar Point, Frontier Town.
Yep.
Cedar
Point is the summit. It's
the summit,
the holy grail of roller coaster kingdom.
So and then you have underneath it, you have accelerate, intimidate, and dominate. All rides at the parks that got other coasters. So obviously, accelate refers to accelerator at Knott's. Intimidate refers to King's Dominion with Intimidator 305, and then dominate refers to Dominator at King's Dominion as well. And I think the summit trailhead, the Frontier Trail, the summit, the pinnacle, that refers to Cedar Point. And so you have all three parks being referenced here. And this was really the time that we started going down the route of probably Knott's Berry Farm was going to see a roller coaster in 20.
This is when we amended our original prediction of Worlds of Fun and said, okay, Knott's Berry Farm, and we owned up to that we were wrong about Worlds of Fun. But at the same time, this is when you and I were basically convinced, the first couple times the King's Dominion threw out teasers, we said, well, are they referencing other parks? Like we thought the Worlds of Fun thing, and then the California's Great America. We said, okay, maybe they're referencing other parks. This is when we said, yes, they're doing it. They're dropping Easter eggs for us, even if they're not going to come out and say that there's a shared theme, or if there's not going to be a shared theme, which it turns out there probably wasn't. But there is no doubt, once we saw this, there was no doubt in our minds that there were Easter eggs being dropped to reference the other Cedar Fair parks.
Yeah. And then the next piece that we got that wasn't even on social media that we had people send to us and people take pictures of was the T-shirt that was in one of the stores at California's Great America that had the state of California with the SR1 road on it. Ultimately, what that references, and the tire tracks that we saw from the very beginning, is that Railblazer has an ATV theme to it. The SR1, I don't know if anyone's driving their ATV all the way up and down the California coastline, but I think it's a clear reference to the SR1 and the other parks that we came up with at the very beginning, at the first time we saw SR1. The tire tracks obviously lead to the ATV theme. And I think that ties California's Great America up very nicely and situates it within this shared announcement, shared campaign that they've had here.
Yeah, and again, it wraps it all up, wraps it up and puts a nice little bow on top. So I really think that, again, we didn't get anything specifically from any of the parks saying, yes, this is what we were doing. But I don't think they need to. And I don't think they were going to. And I don't think they should. Because I think that kind of ruins some of the fun to a certain extent. The only park that's ever really done anything like that is Holiday World a few years ago when they announced Thunderbird. They did the 66 Days at Sea thing. And they counted down to Christmas in July, which is when they announced Thunderbird. That evening, and then Paula Werney went right to Coaster Radio, and Coaster Radio did a live-to-tape episode where she went through and explained all the different teasers and said, this is what we were going for here, this is what this actually meant, and how it tied into the whole story. They're the only park that I know of to explicitly go through and explain all their teasers. So if you were expecting that to happen, that's not what's going to happen, and it's not going to happen. So this is basically, Andy, this is you and I just going through and recapping what we thought each of these teasers meant. And at the end of the day, we're really trying to say that we were right.
Well, and it's, to be honest with you, I just feel that there's overwhelming evidence here.
There is.
We had an unprecedented day of announcements from Cedar Fair. They've never done this. Six Flags has been known to do it for at least the last few years that I can remember. But Cedar Fair has never, ever, ever, ever done this. And
not like this.
And just we know they had to be talking to one another just to coordinate when it would be done and how it would be done, because none of the parks really, you had announcements throughout the whole day. So a lot of the little announcements came in the morning from like Canada's Wonderland, Worlds of Fun, Valley Fair. They all did little announcements in the morning. Then we got into the big Kings Dominion announcement. Then midday we had Cedar Point and California's Great America, a few hours from each other. And then in the evening we had Knott's Berry Farm to close out the day. You had an entire day of announcements. You can't tell me that wasn't done by design, that these parks, because why else would Knott's choose so late of a time to announce their ride? Choose the late evening hours. Because Cedar Fair wanted to spread out the whole day and wanted to be talked about from 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, and have an entire day of Cedar Fair announcements instead of just having it all come out at one time. And then
it happened because at 8:30 a.m. Canada's Wonderland announced, Eastern. We're talking about Eastern time here for me for a second. Canada's Wonderland was the first to announce. They announced 2 new flat rides, the flat ride capital of the world, quite honestly. Adding to that, they announced that, posted it to their website at 8:30 a.m. and Knott's Berry Farm announced at 11 p.m. Eastern time. I mean, they literally spanned 14 hours.
Yeah.
They literally spanned the entire day from morning till night with announcements, and they did them all at different times. They did them when they wanted to, with the exception of really Kings Island and Michigan's Adventure not really getting in on all this. But pretty much every park had something to say. And for an entire day, nobody cared about anything Six Flags. Nobody cared about anything else. We had Time Traveler thrown in there in the middle of the day as well. But at the end of the day, we've spent the last week and a half really talking about Cedar Fair and making our predictions and talking about all this different stuff. And now it's kind of shifting to Six Flags, but Cedar Fair has hit it big because they did this all at once. And they're taking the page out of the Six Flags book. Six Flags has been doing this for several years, and it really gets...
But they did it better.
They did it better. They absolutely did it better, because instead of people waking up at 5 a.m. and watching a 10-minute YouTube video and knowing everything at once, they kept us on edge all day. Yes. All day, all of us at work, people streaming stuff from their desks, people, taking long lunches, and people calling in sick to watch all these announcements. People did it because I know that people did it, because I know that people told me they did it, because they were that excited about this. This was a big thing, and to do it on National Roller Coaster Day, it is absolutely genius, because because every day is something now, right? Every day is 2 or 3 different things.
Yeah. So
to have it on National Roller Coaster Day to announce all your big roller coasters and all your attractions is absolute genius.
So here's the last question, because I think we started this whole process with the simple question of, how do you top the teaser campaigns of past? How do you top things like Gatekeeper or Banshee or Mystic Timbers or Fury? How do you top these teaser campaigns? And Danny, I think Cedar Fair found a way to do just that, to top it, to make this the most epic teaser campaign ever. We've seen more parks teasing than ever before. We've never had this many parks teasing all at once. To do it in the fashion that they did, like you said, on National Roller Coaster Day, to have an entire day's worth of announcements, to come to this ultimate epic fruition, this epic conclusion. Is this the best teaser campaign we've ever seen? Does this top like Thunderbird and all that? I think it does.
I think the individual campaigns don't, but when you link them all together and the fact that we had intermingling and Easter eggs referring each of them, I think it has to be. I think it has to be close. I mean, the Fury one was good. The Thunderbird one was good. I mean, we've had a lot of really good ones, but when you put three or four of those together and link them all together, it's, the Banshee one was really good as well. We've been asking that question for, 2-3 months now. How do you top what Cedar Fair has been doing in recent years with the Banshee and the Bat thing and the Fury Centurion thing? How do you top the great campaigns that they've had in recent years? And the question is, do 4 of them all at once. And that's really what they did. And then they announced them all on one day and, just dropped a bomb. And I really think that this has been the most interesting campaign season from a Cedar Fair perspective because we're getting 4 big rides.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us here. Thanks for joining us on the whole teaser campaign. You guys were great. You watched a whole ton of stuff.
Move, Six Flags.
Right now it's up to Six Flags. They've started. We already have a few videos up there. We just did the Six Flags Great America teaser. We got a few more coming down the pipeline for you. So thanks for joining us here on COASTER.net Uncut. As always, I am Andy Robarczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
And ride on, Ride Warriors.
See you next time, guys.